Welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najima Lima, but first are the headlines. Minister Nabakova loses as court confirms Joyce Bagala as Mityana woman MP. Notu warns government to go slow on striking teachers. Boris Johnson announces a preferential trade system for 65 developing countries. Uganda drops 4 places in latest FIFA rankings. Welcome once again. Now the news in detail. The Court of Appeal has declared former journalist Joyce Bagala as the duly elected woman member of parliament for Mityana district. Bagala beat Lands Minister Nabakova in the January 14th polls for the Mityana woman MP position, prompting the latter to challenge the election in court. We have more. The High Court in Mubende last year ruled that there was voter bribery, multiple voting during the January 14th polls in Mityana committed by Bagala, all her agents, and consequently the non-compliance with the electoral laws saw the presiding judge order for a fresh election after throwing Bagala out of parliament. Bagala challenged the same in the Court of Appeal, which on Friday morning made a judgment. In the judgment, a panel of 3 justices, including Geoffrey Chirabwire, Stephen Musota, and Christopher Gashirabake, reasoned with Bagala and Electoral Commission's lawyers that the lower court was wrong to throw her out and order a fresh election. The justices ruled that both the quantitative and qualitative tests should have been applied in filing of the non-compliance with electoral laws by Nabakova, adding that the claimant, however, didn't show how the non-compliance would have changed the outcome of the election results. The 3 justices said that the onus to prove the effect of the said non-compliance on the outcome of the election lay on Nabakova's side, but noted this was not done. The court also condemned Nabakova to costs as Joyce Bagala was confirmed as Mityana woman MP. Court of Appeal has ordered for a retrial of a petition filed by National Unit Platform's Fred Nyanzi Sentamu challenging the victory of Muhammadi Nseleko as Member of Parliament for Kampala Central Division. The 3 judges of the Appellant Court, led by Justice Geoffrey Chirabwire, ordered Nyanzi to serve Nseleko afresh and the petition be heard afresh by a different judge. Nalugo reports.
On Friday morning, 3 justices of the Court of Appeal, including Geoffrey Chiyabwire, Stephen Musota, and Christopher Gashirabake, ruled that reasonable steps were taken by Nyanzi's lawyers to serve Nseleko with the petition. This was after Freddie Nyanzi, a brother to former presidential candidate Robert Kyagulanyi, adduced sufficient evidence before the appellate court, providing that Mr. Nseleko made it hard to be served with the said election petition as the law required. During the hearing of the petition at the High Court, Nseleko contested it on ground that it was illegal since he was never served. Nseleko was declared winner of the 14th January elections as Kampala Central MP after beating Nyanzi in a tight contest. Having lost the election, Nyanzi, an elder brother to former presidential candidate and National Unity Platform leader Robert Kyagulanyi, challenged Nseleko's victory in the High Court, citing ballot stuffing among other grounds, and in the suit, the Electoral Commission and the returning officer were listed as respondents. However, the case was dismissed by the court on grounds that Nseleko had not been served with the petition. Nyanzi filed another application asking court to allow him do substituted service to Nseleko, but Justice Philip Odoki threw the same out. This prompted Nyanzi to run to the Court of Appeal. The judges, however, noted that it was wrong for Justice Odoki to throw out Nyanzi's application for an order for substituted service to Nseleko. They consequently ruled that Nyanzi's appeal succeeds and ordered that the case be tried again by the High Court but before another judge. The judges also directed that the petition be served to Nseleko through his law firm of Nseleko Mkalazi and Company Advocate.
Umbrella body of the National Organization of Trade Unions have threatened to lay down their tools and join the striking teachers if a government does not withdraw the letter written to teachers instructing them to go back to classes before June 24th. Ahumuza with more.
Yesterday, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Public Service wrote a letter giving teachers up to 24th of this month to report to their duty station without fail, or else they will be regarded as having abandoned duty or resigned. The letter also asked those not willing to work under the prevailing conditions to withdraw their labor. Notu said the letter does not serve any purpose. Okello said government should amicably resolve teachers' grievances basing on the collective bargaining agreement they signed instead of threatening them. Asha Wilson Owere, the Notu Chairman General, said they will individually deal with chief administration officers and town clerks who are threatening the striking teachers, especially in the upcountry areas. Meanwhile, UNATU maintains that the teachers' industrial action is still ongoing and they will not heed to intimidation because the industrial action is lawful. UNATU has written to the Minister of Public Service confirming their stand and also remind them of the collective bargaining agreement which was signed in 2018 and the clauses therein. UNATU says they are ready to offer legal services in case any striking teacher needs them and called upon them to maintain their stand.
Let's take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that his country will support the development of clean energy among Commonwealth nations, announcing a package with the potential to create over 180,000 jobs and cut carbon emissions.
Addressing the Commonwealth Business Forum in Kigali, Rwanda on Thursday, Boris said the British international investment would put 160 million euros into hydropower in Africa, generating electricity for 3 million people. Johnson said that the British international investment is putting 160 million euro into hydropower in Africa, creating 180,000 jobs, including in Rwanda, while at the same time cutting carbon emissions, generating electricity for 3 million people. He also lauded the African Continental Free Trade Area, which he said could generate more capital than Africa could ever receive in international aid. British Prime Minister announced the preferential trade system for 65 developing countries, including Rwanda and 17 other Commonwealth members from July 6th. According to Johnson, partnerships among Commonwealth nations could deliver prosperity from the green economy.
Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema said on Thursday that his country is well placed to weather the global food crisis worsened by the war in Ukraine. Hichilema, whose government inherited $17.3 billion in debt when he was elected last year, is working to restore bartered relations with donors and restructure the load. While briefing the European Parliament in Brussels, Hichilema said that as the world faces critical shortages of key agricultural produce and as the world witnesses the devastating effects of food insecurity in all regions of Africa and beyond, Zambia is well placed. He added that Zambia, which is trying to get out from under a crushing debt load, aims to be a major contributor to the fight against food insecurity. He stressed that Zambia and the European Union were cooperating on agriculture projects, but he called for more collaboration in that sector. The West accuses Russia of blocking vital grain shipments from Ukraine in a bid to force climb downs on sanctions over the war that are eviscerating its economy. The European Union is especially keen to counter Russian claims that the sanctions are to blame for the food shortages that are keenly affecting parts of Africa. This week, it pledged an additional 600 million euros to help African nations and other vulnerable states cope with the shortfalls and to boost sustainable food production. Zambia was Africa's first country to default during the COVID pandemic. In December, Zambia won $1.4 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund on promises of establishing budgetary stability. Moving on, Vital Kamerhe, DRC's President Tshisekedi's former chief of staff, has won his battle. Sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2020 for embezzling around $50 million, the politician was totally cleared on appeal on Thursday. His co-accused Lebanese businessman Sano Jamal was also acquitted. The Kinshasa Gombe Court of Appeal said lack of evidence was the reason for its decision.
Since 2020, Kamerhe President Tshisekedi's former chief of staff was accused of misappropriating an envelope allocated to the construction of houses for the military and police, which was part of a program implemented by President Tshisekedi. Kamerhe was the right-hand man of Felix Tshisekedi between 2018 and 2019. His 20-year sentence was reduced to 13 years in prison on appeal in June 2021. In December 2021, he was granted provisional release. Following this verdict, his political party, the Union for the Congolese Nation, organized gatherings in Bukavu, his stronghold in the east. The 63-year-old is now free to run in the DRC's upcoming 2023 elections.
Away from that, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa on Wednesday, June 22nd, received the last of a series of damning reports from a 4-year investigation into state corruption during his predecessor, Jacob Zuma's presidency. Let's take a look. President Ramaphosa said at the official handover in Pretoria that the report is an opportunity to break decisively with the era of state capture. The head of state said he would announce his decision on whether to follow the Commission's recommendations in 4 months to Parliament. Judge Zondo has already called for the prosecution of more than 130 people, including former ministers. Former President Jacob Zuma on parole after being sentenced to 15 months in prison for refusing to testify before the Commission of Inquiry set up in 2018, is accused of organizing the looting of state coffers for the benefit of a circle of politicians and powerful businessmen of Indian origin, the Gupta brothers. More than 300 witnesses were heard and nearly 1,500 people were questioned by the Commission, whose final report is more than 5,000 pages long. The first volume was published in January. Let's once again take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our business news today, the war in Ukraine is the latest shock to hit global food production, causing concern about the food security situation in Africa. Participants at the EU-Africa Business Summit exchanged ideas on how the two continents can build a new partnership aimed at ensuring sustainable food security.
Solomon Kwaino, Vice President of African Development Bank, stated that with the European commercial banks, they are working to provide trade finance facilities they at share in their portfolios in terms of exposure to African industry and to ensure that the fertilizer and seeds that are needed on an emergency basis do get delivered to Africa. Africa's precarious food security situation is the result of a variety of factors, some of which are structural. Participants at the EU-Africa Business Summit in Brussels called for more private sector involvement and investment in African agriculture, since many African farmers with land depend on other countries for essential inputs such as fertilizer. The war in Ukraine has not only caused a global grain shortage, but that of fertilizer too. This is both a challenge and an opportunity for African fertilizer makers. Experts say that achieving long-term food security in Africa will rest heavily on building resilient agriculture value chains, investing in climate change adaptation, infrastructure, and local manufacturing.
In health, Rwandan President Paul Kagame and BioNTech's CEO Ugal Sahin on Thursday launched the construction of a messenger RNA vaccine factory in Kigali. It is the Africa's first of three planned projects on the continent and aims to produce treatments against COVID-19 and other diseases by early 2024.
According to Ugal Sahin, BioNTech's CEO, BioNTech is researching and developing vaccines and medicines to prevent malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV, which are major causes of mortality on the African continent. Ugal Sahin said that they have partnered with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to develop the tuberculosis and HIV vaccines and are developing malaria vaccines. Paul Kagame called the project groundbreaking and said his country worked to attract biopharmaceutical researchers in the manufacturing sector. Production will include vaccines against COVID, but also pioneering treatments currently in development against malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV diseases that are ravaging Africa. Human trials of a BioNTech malaria vaccine using mRNA technology are expected to begin in late 2022. Africa is the world's least vaccinated continent against COVID-19. Less than 20% of its 1.2 billion population have received 2 doses of vaccine.
And in sports, Uganda has dropped 4 places in world football according to the latest FIFA rankings released this week. According to the rankings released on Thursday, Uganda, which was 86th in the previous rankings compiled in March, has dropped further to 90th in the world and 18th in Africa. Ahumza with more.
The dip in form is attributed to the poor start in the AFCON 2023 qualifying games, in which the East African nation has got only 1 point from the possible 6. Uganda received baptism of fire in their opening game when they lost 2-0 to Algeria, but was also held to a 1-0 draw by Niger in a game played at Chitende. The nation has since December dipped in ranking from 82nd. The rankings released on Thursday also indicated that Senegal is still leading in the pack in Africa and 18th in the world, followed by Morocco 22nd, Tunisia 30th, Nigeria 31st, Cameroon 38th, Egypt 40th, Algeria 41st, Mali 46th, Ivory Coast 52nd, and Burkina Faso 55th in the top 10. In the region, Uganda is however still ahead of neighbors Kenya, who are in the 102nd, Tanzania 131, Rwanda 136, and South Sudan 165. In the entire world, Brazil is still leading the pack with Belgium, Argentina, France, England, Spain, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, and Denmark following in that order in the top 10 footballing nations on planet Earth.
That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned.